Hello! Welcome to the channel, whether you're a new viewer or a returning subscriber. It's near the end of the year, and what that means is it's also near the beginning of a new anime season, specifically the 2018 winter season. So with that in mind, I thought it would be a good idea to make sort of like a content schedule for this channel for the upcoming season. That way you can know which series I'm going to be reacting and reviewing, and hopefully if you're also interested in the series, you can stay and watch along with me. So I picked out 6 animes that I have already deemed to be on my watch list, as well as another 6 which are in sort of like my observation list. So uh, if I have more time, or if one of my main 6 I either want to drop or I can't find a good streaming source uh, to stream from, then I would use one of these observation list animes and fill in their role. Um, I don't want to go overboard with all the reactions because this is just a side hobby, and I don't want to make it so it almost seems like a job, right? But in any case, without further ado, let's just go right into the list. So, first up on the list is That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, or as I like to call it, Tensura. Its shortened Japanese name. So this series I've already been reviewing on my channel, so it only makes sense to continue reviewing this series through its second half of the season. And it's definitely a good anime in its own right. So the source material itself is already a critically acclaimed light novel slash web novel. It's also one of the OGs, I guess you could say, and helped build the foundation for a lot of the current era light novels or web novels. And the adaptation itself is also of pretty high quality. So when you're adapting a light novel, there's always this risk where the studio might screw it up in some way. So there's been countless examples of this throughout the past few years in regards to these adaptations, right? Either the animation sucks or the story itself is not, they don't know how to put in all the information into a limited anime form. So by losing a lot of the nuances itself that can't be carried over from the light novel into the anime, the overall enjoyment of the series goes down. But in this case, I feel like I don't think it's a big issue here. In fact, if anything, the pacing is a bit slower than what I would expect from an anime. Although it seems that the pace will start to uh, quicken up in the future. So to the point where it's even people are even thinking that the pace might be too fast, and it will go to the route where I just described, and it loses a lot of the contextual information. But other than that, everything else about this series is great. The animation is great, the dialogue is great, the voice acting on point, and overall, no complaints. No complaints. And I look as one of my favorite genres, fantasy genres. I'm very looking forward to see what exactly we can see in the future from Tensura, especially considering we've already been hinted or teased a lot of, you know, bigger stuff that's happening in the world and even more interesting settings, which we have yet to fully explore yet. So definitely going to be checking out this anime. The second anime on my list is The Rising of the Shield Hero, Tate no Yuusha no Nariagari. This one, I guess you could say, is even more old school than Tensura, since this one came out at around, I believe, 2012, so even before Tensura. Uh, I've also heard of this series before, and in fact, I believe I've read or watched or seen the manga of at least the very first few chapters of this light novel. So I already know a little bit about it, but definitely not all. So I think this would still be a good series to react to. And it's been so long that think I've forgotten most of the details already anyways. Compared with Tensura, this one is definitely more of a serious isekai type, even though, oh yeah, speaking of which, this one is also an isekai work where the main character is transported into another world from his original world. Um, Although it's an isekai work such as Tensura, this one definitely goes more of the serious route. So there's definitely not going to be as much comedy and not so much, those happy-go-lucky vibe that Tensura and Rimuru give off. This one is much more serious, a lot more turmoil and conflict within here, and in fact, a lot of political turmoil, actually. So definitely this would be a good series to be watching along with Tensura, so we can sort of, contrast two different kinds of making a story, telling a story. In fact, this story, honestly speaking, I thought it would have gotten an adaptation much sooner than this. I don't know why they waited until 2019 to release it, but I guess better late than never, right? So hopefully they're not going to screw this one up. The third anime I'm slated to review is The Promised Neverland, Yakusoku no Neverland. This one, to be honest, is probably the one least in line with my own interests. Looking at its main genres, it's mystery and horror, and looking back through my own viewings, the only works that I've seen that fits within these two genres would be the Monster series. So definitely this is something that I'm going to be watching purely on reputation alone. So it's the manga that it comes from is highly regarded, and so that's why I'm going to look at this one and broaden my horizons, if you will. But definitely, this one is the one that I'm not that hyped about, if you can say. But I definitely will check it out to see if it deserves all the hype and, whether it's a good adaptation of its source material. The fourth anime on my to-watch list would be Boogiepop wa Warawanai, or Boogiepop Never Laughs, I guess. This one is, like the previous one, mostly focused on horror and mystery, although this one also adds the tag of psychological to it. So that one is much more up my alley. Although I would have been even more confident if in the recommendations to similar works for this one, they added something like 21st Century Boys or 20th Century Boys, which are works I really enjoy. But in any case, I looked at the trailer for this one, and at least aesthetic-wise, it's definitely more to my liking. So at least it's got that going for it. And the Boogiepop series itself is also critically acclaimed, so going by reputation, it also seems to be a good series to pick up. So hopefully I will enjoy this one as well. And the fifth anime that I am slated to watch for the next season would be a surprise to maybe a lot of you. And that is Kouya no Kotobuki Hikoutai, or translated literally, the Kotobuki Flying Squadron of the wilds, or of the barren frontiers. So I guess you can just look from its key visuals, what's it about. So let me preface this by saying that I'm a huge fan of Girls and Panzer. I am sort of like a military nerd, I guess you could say. And, well, I also like watching cute girls, hot girls, right? So, hey, combining accurate military knowledge with cute girls, right up my alley. And this one looks to be similar to Girls and Panzer. The only difference is one obviously is more one is with tanks, so land battles, whereas this one would be using airplanes. And it seems that they're also going to be focusing on World War II era airplanes, so the Heibasa and the Zero series of planes. So, the subject matter itself is indeed very interesting to me, and also the character design, from what I can see right now, is also interesting, at least to me. So it's something that, just looking at its cover, I would want to watch. Now, with that said, however, there are a lot of uneasiness I have about this series in general. First of all, it's the animation studio behind it is basically a new one. It's relatively unknown. They haven't really put out any works yet. Well, they have put out 1 or 2 works which were not really well regarded, so there's that. And then, as far as I know, this whole thing is going to be in CGI. So, right, that's another can of worms, right? And also, because it's an original story, there's not really much to go on. Although the series director for this does have some good works underneath her belt, but again, not sure how this is going to turn out at all. All the voice actors for this series are also relatively new. Most of them were either only in supporting roles or in some animes that, to be frank, I've never heard of. So it's a huge unknown, right? So this one, probably more than anything, any other series on this list, would be one of my first guesses that I would drop if I do find it to be too bad. But on the other hand, this also has the potential to become, a super dark horse, right? So that's why I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I like the subject matter, so I'll see a few episodes to see what is going on. So, before I move on to the 6th anime that I'm going to watch next season, I thought I'd go over my 6 observation list anime as well. So these are ones that I also picked out which I'm fairly interested in, and which I will be watching if a slot opens up, or I find some time in my schedule to watch them, because there's definitely something about these anime that I like as well. So the first one would be Kaguya-sama wa Kokurasetai Tensai-tachi no Renai Junosen, which is a mouthful, so I'm just going to call it Love is War. So it's basically, from what I can tell, a rom-com, but its twist is in that the two main characters, the male and female leads, are in a battle of wits with each other. So this is something that I really enjoy, whether it's movies or in manga or anime. So I like to watch Ocean's 11, 12, 13, or something like Death Note, right? So definitely something that I'm interested in, and the source material manga is also highly rated. In fact, I think I probably will pick this up. It's just that it's going to be more of a irregular viewing, maybe, unless I can find some time in my schedule. The second one is Revisions. So this is an entirely original anime. It appears to be mecha based, and the designs look nice. The story itself is also interesting enough, but the problem is that it's going to be an entirely CGI. So that's one negative point of it. And the second part is the animation studio doesn't seem to have really done much before, so it's a relatively new or really relatively unproven animation studio. So that makes me a little dubious of the quality of this anime. But definitely, if just going by its story plotline or its character design, then something that I do want to check out. The third one on the list is Maho Shoujo Tokushusen Asuka. So basically, magical girls, special forces. So, magical girls, and then I just mentioned that I'm a sort of military nerd, right? And then also I like to watch, attractive ladies doing things. So you put magical girls and you put special forces and mix them together. This seems right up my alley as well. In fact, I think it even gives me some kind of gunslinger girl vibes. I don't know how many of you have heard of that series. So definitely something that I also want to check out as well, just based on its premise. Now the thing is, uh, the design of the key visual doesn't really give me much confidence on how good it's going to be. In fact, it looks more like one of those trashy animes that you see, which are a dime a dozen nowadays. And also, its original source manga isn't as highly regarded. But, just by its material and the fact that it's trying to do a magical girl genre, but in a more dark route, definitely piques my interest. So I will be keeping a close eye on this series as well. And then the fourth one would be Girly Air Force. So I already mentioned that I want to watch the Kotobuki, the Flying Squadron one, basically. And this one, Girly Air Force, is also, I guess, kind of similar, except that, again, judging by its key visuals and whatnot, it gives me more of a, I guess, Strike Witches vibe. Looking at it just by the key visuals, right? It definitely seems like a series where there's going to be fan service. Now, not that there's anything wrong with it, right? Like, I like fan service in moderate amounts, but I'm afraid that this series is also just going to go to just a pure trashy route, basically. Although its source material light novel seems to be relatively well received within the Japanese community. So maybe it's actually going to be very serious. From what I can tell, and from what I could see from looking up some things very quickly, it's using modern airplanes. So modern fighters from both US or Russian or maybe even Japanese and various other modern aircraft. So there's definitely this other thing going for it. So again, I will look at it, but no promises. The fifth one is Egao no Daika. Now this one is another mecha anime. It's actually the studio for it is Tatsunoko Productions, which is the production studio who also co-produced Evangelion, as well as things like Macross. So they are very well established, and this is their original work. It's to commemorate their 55th anniversary in the business. So definitely going to be looking closely at this series as well. Although their other original works that they tried to do doesn't seem to be very good. So just because it's a commemoration project doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be of high quality. But definitely looking at the mecha designs and whatnot, it seems to be enjoyable, right? Although mecha is not something that I really watch all that often. So again, in my observation list for now. And finally, we have Dororo. This is a remake of a very classic anime, I guess you could say. Um, Not much else to talk about it. Apparently, the director or the animators of this also did Rurouni Kenshin, which is one of my favorite anime slash mangas as well. So, might pick this up, but again, I do worry if the story is a bit more dated, I guess you could say. And the animation style is definitely something that I don't watch as often. But again, something to keep an eye on. So those six are my observation list animes, and if if any of them are well received or I can make up some time, I definitely will check any of these out. And if you also want me to check one of these out, feel free to comment below and tell me why I should be watching this series. So maybe that might factor and make me move my priorities a little bit.
And rounding out my 2018 winter to-watch anime list would be Bang Dream, the second season of it, or as it's known in Japan, Bandori. So, this one is also relatively more unknown in the West, and a lot of people would either have never heard of it, or they would feel confused as to why this anime got a second season, especially considering the first season had some issues with it, especially in regards to the animation. Well, to understand that, you need to understand what Band Dream is, actually. And, first disclaimer, this is my personal bias. I absolutely love this series, and so I'm gonna show it a little bit, right, since this is my channel, and I can do what I want. So, what is Bang Dream? The subject matter is in regarding to girl bands, basically. So a rock band composed entirely out of females. So if you go by anime terms, this would be something similar to K-On!, I guess would be the most famous example, and also something like Show by Rock. And to me personally, this is something that this is a subject matter that I'm very interested in. I love to watch and listen to a lot of girl bands, Japanese girl bands. They have some amazing talent. Bands like, Bandmaid or Aldius, Scandal, Gacharic Spin, a lot of good stuff happening in Japan in regards to all female bands. So the subject matter itself is something I'm very interested in. But perhaps what is even more important about Bang Dream is that it is what we call, or what is called, a mixed media project. Now, what does that mean? That means that there are lots of different mediums in which you can enjoy this franchise. So there's not only anime, there's also games, there's also mangas, merchandise, card games, and also live events. And that latter part is the most exciting or most compelling thing for me about this entire franchise. So, what I mean by live events is that the voice actors for the games, for the animes, actually play their instruments at a live concert performance. So, in game or in anime, they have these fictional bands because it's a story about girl bands, right? And the people who voice them, the voice actors, the seiyus, they also form a band in real life and perform accordingly in real life. So, it just blows my mind, right? The amount of talent that Japanese voice actors have, that they can do something like this. So, we've already know that they can voice act, right? And then the next step would have been singing. So maybe somebody like Mizuki Nana would be a prime example of this. And then later on, they did start to do idol works. So things like the Love Life franchise or the Idolmaster franchise would have the voice actors both singing and dancing. And well, the next step of this apparent evolution would be to play in a band. So, absolutely love it. But you don't have to take my word for it. You can watch yourself. And so those were clips from the live performances of 3 of the bands within the Bandori franchise. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. The first performance was by the band Poppin' Party, which is the main protagonist band. The second one is from Roselia, which is sort of like a, I guess, rival band of Poppin' Party. And then the third one is the newest addition to the franchise, Raise a Suilen. So they are the 6th band to be put into this franchise, and also the 3rd band to have live performances, because unfortunately not all of the bands within the franchise are able to gather all the voice actors required to do these kinds of live performances. So again, everything that you saw, those are all voice actors and playing their own instruments. well, I guess Reisei Suilin's circumstance are a little bit more unique in that they're actually musicians first, and then they were later added on to give them a voice acting role. But in any case, to me, this is a huge part of why this franchise is so compelling for me. Because not only can I enjoy playing the games, watching the anime or manga, but I can also enjoy listening to these live performances given by the voice actors. Now, I guess for some people, they might want to clearly divide the 2D stuff that they like and the 3D stuff that they like. So, I guess that's also understandable. Some people don't necessarily want to see the connection between these two worlds. But I definitely think that that's a huge reason of why you would want to enter this franchise or become a fan of this franchise. And even if we're going by the pure anime itself, even though a lot of people have some issues with it, the first season of Bang Dream, personally, I thought it was decent enough. Because, like, from my personal experience, I've never... Before I watched the Bang Dream anime, I did not know anything about either the game, or the voice actors, or the live performances that they were holding, right? So I came into this essentially blind. I only came across it because I was looking for some other anime that had the subject matter of girl bands, and I've already watched K-On! And Show by Rock, so I wanted to find another franchise or another anime to watch. And so that's why I picked up Bang Dream. And sure, it has some issues, but to me it was enjoyable enough that I then eventually downloaded the game, played the game, and then I learned about the live events, and then that was that. So now I'm a huge fan of this franchise. So I definitely think that just purely by the anime itself, it still has its points. If you like anything music related, or if you like the subject matter of girls playing in bands, or if you are a fan of K-On! Or Show by Rock, then I definitely still feel that you can enjoy this series. The way that they structure it, it's also sort of like an idol anime, even though the subject matter is bands. A lot of the points that they touch upon is also similar to idol anime. So there's that one as well. If you like idol anime, like Love Live or Idol Master, probably you can also enjoy this one as well. So, in any case, this rounds up my my watching list for 2018 winter, and yeah, hopefully you guys can come along for the ride within my channel. So happy holidays, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.
果てしなく続くこの道に一つだけ決めたことがある果てのない道にひるんでも一つだけ決めたことがある追いか